Like I said, just get it going.
Thank you, Martha.
Yep, hey, no problem.
All right. April 30th, we will call the Grant County Drainage Board to order. And note all 5 members are present. We do have quorum. And we will move right into the agenda, approval of minutes and then claims. So we have the minutes with us.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Cates has made a motion to approve minutes as presented. Mr. Goff has seconded that. Any questions, comments, editorial changes? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think we had ayes down there.
I'm abstaining.
All right. Oh, be 4 ayes, 1 abstention, noting Mr. Pinkerton as abstained. If you'll walk us through claims, please.
Chuck Sewer and Drain Cleaning, $335 on the rock tile, $73,536 in the fund. Bragg Excavating, $3,436 on the Fadley and Owl tile, $128,566 in the fund. Morlock Wildlife Control, $700 on Hollis Daughtery, $12,163. That's the nuisance trapper. We have 3 more on Taylor Creek, but Kenny's staying up.
Okay. Questions on those, gentlemen?
We pay these 2 claims.
Oh, you had a question?
I'll make a motion.
He beat you to it, you second it? All right. Mr. Cox has moved to approve these, the first set of claims. Mr. Cates has seconded. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstaining? Very good. It's unanimous. And next batch, please.
These are different locations on different landowners on Taylor Creek. Cook Excavating, $2,730 on Taylor Creek, $267,000 in the fund. Cook Excavating, $140 on Taylor Creek. And Cook Excavating, $1,050 on Taylor Creek. This is north of 100 North, where we've made an access path to get those dead trees out. One was on the Thompson property. And one was on the Beischer property. And the other one was Thomas Smith. Removed several small log jams. That was the $840 one. And the other one was on the Beischer farm, reshaped banks to straighten the flow a little bit and knock down a lot of dead ash trees. And we made an access path to get back to these places in the future.
I'll make a motion to approve these 3 claims.
Second. Motion, Mr. Goff, second, Mr. Cox. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those abstaining? Carried 4 to 1 abstention. Mr. Cates abstained. All right, we've paid our bills. Under old business, Gordon's continuing question, have our attorneys talked? No, they haven't talked yet.
Okay.
All right. We'll move to new business. First, Simmons ditch discussion.
And I'd just like to say that there's $113,105 in the fund. It's shut off. The landowners would like to bring that back to hearing. We've got $25 an acre, $50 home site is what they pay. They're finding out that's $25,912 yearly. And, Wheeling is going to be paved. They could get more depth if they cross Wheeling and outlet it into the open ditch. And that's the problem right now. and having enough money to even go to the first county road. They'd like to go farther. But Raymond's worked on a little bit and knows more than I do, than the landowners might be here today. Yeah.
You want to talk, or you want me to talk?
But we need to have a hearing later this summer, and either raise the maintenance or turn it back on us if that's a request. Because the money's just not building up fast enough to do a replacement down to the state road. Okay, Raymond.
They had a plan from, or they talked with Joe Seward. Joe Seward told them that if they want to put 30-inch, they needed to go north of Wheeling, and that the tile itself was going to cost around $100,000. They would like to request that you let them hire Joe to put in $99,000 worth, get across Wheeling and go south as far as they can get, turn the fund back on to the $25 an acre to $50 a house and 25 minimum. That would require a public hearing, I presume, to get that restarted. But in order for them to have money to work on it in the future, they're going to need to continue to bring in the money.
Well, if you spent that money this year, it'll turn back on next
It'll
year.
automatically turn
automatically.
back on, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But then you're going to do it in $100,000 segments, and it's still going to be piecemeal. Whereas if they waited until they had 150, they could get further. I don't know, not positive how much it's going to cost to get to 26. I did talk to an engineer, and he said that for the engineer to profile the 4,000 feet, it was going to be around $5,000. But if you're comfortable with Joe Seward's knowledge and elevation and putting tile in, he can profile it as they're requesting him to do it and save that money and put it in the tile. So whether,
How far did Joe think he'd get on that? Because at one
he
time,
hasn't presented that yet.
when about 100,000 was in there, that would buy the tile and the stone, but there wouldn't be nothing to put it in with,
Yeah,
no labor.
whether Joe would come up with a plan and a profile to present to you for you to approve, or to approve him to go ahead and spend the $99,000 to do it, that would be your decision. Or all of it's your decision.
And there's two other questions that, we need to answer with the landowners. Or one is consensus, they want the old tile left in place and want it to work, but they want the new one put in. Which side do you pick?
I talked with Phil and Brad, and they were okay with the new one being put on the east side.
That would benefit everybody. Everybody would be in agreement with that.
The two, except other than Lassiter. Lassiter is the other big player that has multiple acreage or large amount of acreage. There's still questions.
I think it needs to be a consensus that everybody in agreement before.
Do it at a public hearing, have a public hearing to bring them, or?
Right. Send out notices for a public hearing to discuss it later this year. Nothing's gonna be done before plant time, but
You got input.
yeah. Listen to the landowners.
Bradley, come up here. I'm Randy Atkins, 8560 South Wheeling Pike, here now. From what Bradley has shared with me, based on what he's gathered from Jim and Raymond, and you guys tell me if I'm incorrect, that the original discussion we had a few years back, the new tile was going to go on the west side of the old.
I don't think it was determined.
Okay.
I don't think it was determined either by the board or the landowners.
So now we're proposing to go on the east side of the old, which is, there's a very limited amount of area between the old and existing woods of a landowner that Bradley leases the land from. So there is, in order to get enough cover on that tile would have to go into the wooded part.
No, that woods would have to be pushed back.
How far?
The only way it works.
He's concerned about that.
How far is the tile from the woods?
Say 20 to 30 yards at the most. I mean, it's very close as it sits, at least in one section that I've repaired.
Maybe 50 foot is nothing for roots.
Yeah.
At least 50 foot.
And this debate of 24-inch versus 30, do we have that debate going on?
Still, the board is unsure what the consensus is of the landowners want to put in.
Okay,
The contractors that I,
Cover.
the contractors that I talked to said that the 24 was too small for the watershed and they needed the 30 inch. As far as
But you're leaving
sewer,
the other 24 in, and you're gonna leave the laterals connected to it
The
on
24
one side.
is only about 12 though, because it's, from when we repaired it, I mean, it's half full and it's in pretty rough shape from the sections that we've replaced, so I guess I don't know enough to know how much longevity that old tile has left, and if it's gonna be, you know, problematic in the future, 10 years, 15, in my lifetime, I guess, you know, because
Well, see, I think if it's gonna be in the way and a hindrance, why not deaden it and kill it and put the other one in close to it at the bigger size?
I think we'll need a
If you can
vote,
get the
Jim.
cover, need them both.
Have we done watershed studies?
there's
How many acres are coming into this?
Yeah, there's waters.
1,000 to 1,200.
Everybody's paying the ditch tax on that water.
Are we accounting for the fact that there's potential solar development on the
Can't
south end,
can't assess it according to future development.
the west end?
No, there's no consideration of what,
Solar development?
yeah, no.
We haven't taken into account of what potential.
We don't know. We don't know how many acres is gonna be under, but I suggest if they develop that area, that there is some holding ponds that catch all that water and meter it to the county tile. So that somewhere on that farm, that's what the drainage board's gonna have to address, but I want some of these to have some retention in them, rather than just dumping it on the next door neighbor, like they did in Randolph
I think that's probably what
County.
Phil and Andy are wanting to get rid of is retention, because they're the retention on the south side of 26.
Jim is saying that the retention would be on the property that has the solar fields.
That's not the way it's gonna go. It's gonna go on them.
Not if it's created on the property that has the solar fields.
So we're gonna disrupt the natural landscape of the soil to create a retention pond for solar?
You're speculating on whether there's
We're
solar.
not going to
gonna go.
speculate on that right now, Randy.
I'm just
Wanna know
looking, I'm just
information.
thinking about the future on running this excess water off from the solar people onto somebody that's not signed up for solar. It's gonna cause
My concern
erosion.
is if we put this much money into the project and then, you know, 10 years from now, the landscape changes with the solar and the extra water on top of the ground, where's it gonna go? And is the 30-inch tile gonna be enough to control it? I mean, I know it's speculation.
You probably need
but
an
it's
open
also-
ditch or a 4-foot tile. I don't have that answer.
Okay, I don't see how you can not speculate depending on the tax burden that's gonna be placed on this young man for tile. I mean, I said before you guys a while back, I said, we need to do watershed studies, because if I'm paying the right to have access to that county tile, I need to be able to, in the future, be able to put an outlet to that county tile that I bought the right to have access to.
I agree.
And I was accused of conflict of interest. I'm sorry, folks, we have to look at the future for the next generation coming. Those are my concerns.
And they're good concerns. There's a lot of unanswered questions on this project.
Yeah, no, I think we need to keep the old one going, Jim. I think the Chastines, we've done a wonderful job of keeping it maintained, and, you know, we fix the holes immediately when they're broken down.
So it won't be hooked up to the new one then. We'll keep that foot of sediment or whatever in the old one and let it do its thing.
How old is that tile?
I'm sorry?
How old is that tile?
I don't know.
I'm not positive.
Older than me.
Old.
I like all of them.
It's either 1840s or 1880s.
Wore out.
We're talking about long. Yeah.
Wore out.
But keep in mind, it is the outlet for hundreds of acres.
Yeah, and it flows. I mean, there's a current that moves through it.
There's surface flow.
You know, if you take the amount of watershed you have there at a 3/8 water coefficient, you're less than half of what we need with an existing good 24. You know, two 24s that were new side by side would just barely cover it.
And I think by reading the records, that used to be a small open channel, and they put the 24 in way back then.
Yeah, because when it flows over the top. Yeah.
It's a natural condition.
But we also think that a 30 and the current will carry that load.
that you guys?
For now.
It'll really make a difference.
How far are we going south at 26?
You're running out of money.
Well, they're trying to get, the goal is to get to 26, put a big manhole in my opinion, and then prove to the state that they need to cross it. The crossing's bad. If it's the same location and they cross it, we could have, you either got to have one riser for the 24. If we use the same location, then the state needs to pay all of that. Otherwise, we got to share half and half if we pick a new location. When we got down there and dig and we prove that it's bad under the state road, then we lean on them to get it across to where all the water sits.
See, I think this is another case where we have to take some consideration to Kenny and Wendell's concerns in the event that solar development does occur, that we've got an easement that's great enough for us to accommodate what could happen here, because those folks that are going to pay on the top end of that, the south end of that, they need to have the right to be able to get drainage in the event that that tile needs to be extended onto the south.
Which it does.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm talking about a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The 100,000 that's there will surprise me if it gets to the woods. If you're starting north of Wheeling Pike 600 feet, that would be up to Joe as far as Joe's price and what. We haven't been presented with any estimate by Joe.
Do you have any idea how far we have to go into that woods? Because that's going to be huge for that one landowner.
Ward, 50 feet's nothing for tree roots.
You need to go twice the canopy, don't you?
Even if it's a non-perforated driveway?
Well, if it's non-perforated, it'll be okay for a while. But they still got.
If you got 100-foot trees, you're gonna be 200 foot away from it.
It's whatever the landowner and the board could work out, is what we could go for.
And they're still gonna grow.
But we could get you to a meeting for just this problem later this year.
So the question is, are we going to go ahead and ask for a petition for a public hearing, or are we going to go ahead and give permission to utilize current funds?
Yeah, that's the question. But Joe's got to get a proposal, bring it in here. And when he's bringing it in here, we'd like to notify the interested landowners. We'll send notices to everybody. You guys are interested, come in, we'll look at his proposal, we'll talk about it again.
Should we get a 24 into 30 just to take a peek at it?
Everybody says the 24 is not big enough.
You guys agree with that?
It's really not big enough. We just need drainage, so.
Been working on this 20 years, so.
But your concern with the solar is they're gonna saturate and run off surface water onto your project, right? That's what somewhere in that easement,
Yeah.
if they could put a holding pond to meter their water, so their water kind of fills up and goes out at a lesser rate, they would have a little reservoir instead of dumping on the next door neighbor.
Is that common practice?
Well, I don't know. In Randolph
Oh, yeah.
County, when I went and looked at them down there, it's just dumping on the next door neighbor, and they might not have signed up. They're getting all this extra water.
And that's what we
I don't know about solar, but it's common practice with about any development. Put in a retention pond to slow that release.
But is that a maybe, or is that something that, as a drainage board, you guys can mandate that they?
We can.
Drainage board has that authority, yeah.
I guess the question would be, any other projects that have been done in the county, has there ever been any retention ponds associated with them?
Oh, yeah.
No solar. Any of the small solar fields?
That's
No.
an interesting question, because we didn't have regulation before now.
Yeah.
How far you guys think Joe's out and give us a bid?
I don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
As soon as we get it and you tell us, we can set up a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd suggest we'll send you this.
We'll give everybody what-
Let's look at the impact. This kid's carrying a lot of interest on that property. I can see him jacking another 50 or 60 bucks an acre.
And once we get Joe's estimate, we could have the notices sent out in about 2 weeks' time for a following meeting. Or he'll send the notices out.
And at that time we get Joe's to look at, we'll have an idea what the future expenses will be going further south.
Okay.
Because right now we're guessing at prices.
Got a plan? Okay,
Sounds good?
thank you.
Next up, Burge Tile
Is
discussion.
anybody here on the Birch Tile today? Okay. I just like to report, you know, if we're raising the home sites on the Birch, we've been petitioned to raise the maintenance. And you know, we need to talk to the town board. We had a reconstruction at one time and the town board turned it down because it was gonna be too high. So if we're
Help me.
What town it run through?
Is that Van Buren or
Sweetser,
Sweetser? Okay.
Where's
Sweetser, the Birch Tile, runs out of Sweetser to the east, southeast, or northeast.
we're gonna have to do something with it.
Well, we're gonna have a hearing later this year, but I don't wanna surprise the town board. We need to talk to them and see what kind of rate they would back as far as a home site, rather than just make up one. So let's pass on that today. I just wanted to tell you about
Okay. I don't see John Needler here either.
it. Well, he wasn't gonna be here today. He wanted me to represent him. And, he's got a quarter mile of brush on, Sims Franklin. He does not want the brush cut. He's gonna maintain the ditch himself. He's took out the dead trees and he said the flow goes through there good. He likes that for a windbreak for his son's house. And he's guaranteed the board that he's gonna keep it open. If the board would disagree and buck him on that, then he would like to come to a meeting and discuss it. But he wanted me to bring his request before the board.
I don't like that because,
He's gonna do it, but who's gonna do it when he's gone?
right.
Well, we'll address that
How
down
do
the
we know
road.
he's gonna do it? He says he's
had
gonna
problems
do
over
it.
there.
Do we have anything to hold him accountable?
Has that area been sprayed?
Not his, he don't want his spray because the trees are pretty good size. We had a plan to cut more trees on the Morrow property. And did a letter go out on it? So he doesn't know about it yet, but it's gonna be fall because of planting. We don't wanna do it right now. But there are trees that did grow up on a section that people wasn't maintaining on their own. The part that's been maintained on their own, since we brushed it, has been sprayed, is on the spray program.
That down through Sheffield's and down in through there, on both sides of 38th Street's there.
Yeah,
Needs to be brushed or sprayed. And they sprayed it once before, done a pretty decent job of slowing it down.
I would say John probably needs to come and talk to us.
okay.
That's my guess. I'm just trying to read
Yeah, well,
board in
and
here.
like you said, he made the one, but the next person.
Well, it'd be his son. His son has
We
the
don't know
house.
that.
Yeah, but I'm guessing,
You don't know that.
okay? I don't want to cut the trees down against his bush, so.
But we don't want to have to cut them out of expense later. We've gone through.
Yeah, it'd be out of the big maintenance fund. Sims,
No, it wouldn't.
well, Sims and Franklin has $22,390 in the fund. $1.50 an acre, $5 minimum.
That doesn't go very far from brushing.
No, that's why it's still there.
Is that fair enough to have him come and have a talk with us, okay?
One question.
Let's go Martin Tile, the flooding issue.
The Martin Tile, I talked to the new subdivision association. I don't have his name in front of me, but, you know, it flooded last time, Pat, and I was wondering if the city could put a camera in it. I think there's maple roots probably in the yard leaving the place. Could the city put a camera in that for us?
Where's the Martin?
Yeah, well, what's about tile?
Bellamy Estates,
Oh, okay.
Oh,
and that's a
Tried that before.
That's a 15-inch tile. This is another meeting where they don't have enough money. They need about 200,000. They got 62,895 in the fund. Well, that coming across Meridian Street and then dumped into the backyard of a person. And there's a little head wall there. The two landowners had an open ditch, so they wanted to tile it in across their yard. And that dead-end road that, what's the name of that?
Bainbridge, Roger.
Roger Bainbridge lives at the end of that dead-end road. and it dumps into this county county highway department system that he's thinking about redoing. It goes down to the bottom of the cul-de-sac, which is all low ground, goes through a couple driveways. We don't have an easement there. If they want to bump this tile up someday to a 30-inch, we can't dump it in them backyards. The easement would have to be engineered and going on down. Roger had a channel. He's put two 12-inch tiles in his little open ditch and tried to cover them up. But he's getting all this water and it's not working.
It's there off of 50th Street.
Yeah,
Is that
so
right?
you'd have to make the legal ditch longer and outlet it past Roger, and then there's Deer Creek. It would go into Deer Creek on the next owner, but
If there's decent enough access, we can try and get our camera
well,
equipment.
there's a manhole back by the maintenance building.
Yeah. but,
And it needs to go down there, and then there's one, it used to be McFarland was the guy's last name, and he's got one in his backyard that has filled up like a reservoir before. But there's two big maple trees in his yard, and there could be roots from the housing complex too. But if the city had run a camera, then, you know, we would have to hire somebody to go out there and start digging and looking.
I just need to maybe meet you out there and figure it out if there's access, because we can only go maybe 500 feet.
Well, that'd about do it.
And that's in a good tile. So if the tile's offset, broken,
Then you're gonna be tearing up property to
we don't want to,
dig it up.
yeah, we don't want to dig up some, because I know some of those tiles, seems like some of those may be under people's houses.
The north part is. I seen the camera from the city.
So
And I can't do it tomorrow,
we're
but
just a little concerned about hanging up a camera under someone's house.
Thursday Kyle wants to see me Thursday morning, but later Thursday or Friday, I'd be available. Call me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we've had over 7 inches of rain in April, so there's a lot of flooding.
And then I got two other things to talk about real quick here. I talked to Mr. Chance at 4533 South Meridian. He has pictures of his property flooded the other night. And, you know, we need to get Dave White out there. He's the only answer that I think, if he put a riser right where that water runs down, where it runs out in the street, because he has put a pile of dirt up on his property, Titan Motors has.
I did ask him to make contact, evidently he hasn't.
No, you know, it would be
Do it again.
putting in a little tile, a little bit of a side ditch with a tile that would run it around to the south to get it into the side ditch, which takes it all the way south to Big Deer Creek. That would be the answer, you know, to solve it, because if you do it the other two directions, at the end, 515 feet to Davis Moorhead, and it's overloaded. So what's going to happen? It's going to come up. But see, when the city took him off of, the city put him on city sewage and city water. He granted him easement to go back to the apartment complex. So when they did that, he's put a new roof on. He's got the downspouts going to the roof, and they go to the septic tank. I don't know how his leach fields are, but since the septic tank fills up from roof water, it's not made for roof water. Well, then his foundation is wet. He's got a 4-foot sump pump in the basement, and he's worried about, you know, black mold, but that property's always been wet, but Titan has run a little bit of water on him now, you know.
Okay, we will make a secondary contact with David, and he was supposed to get with you so you guys
It'd
could
be a
go out
minimum
there.
amount of work to solve this problem.
Okay.
And then my other problem is, Don Wright has a 1/2 mile easement on Deer Creek, and he would like it on the spray program. Now, he's kept that brushed or mowed, and
No, we have
we have, but last time we mowed it,
property on.
thorns and locust trees are growing up in it. You know, so we either keep it mowed, but it needs sprayed because they're growing up in the easement, so he'd like to be on the spray program. And if we could get that extra money, could we use it on all the spray programs this year?
We can,
Yeah, that'd be a good spot to use it to save the funds for other things.
yeah. We just need to designate them, and then you need to, with the board's recommendation, send it to the commissioners so that they can
Okay.
approve it. Anything else before we go to other business?
Well, he's requesting a half a mile spraying. What do you think, Gordon? Is it okay?
I got a thing, I got a mile and a half and I can't bear mine, but I'm gonna do the
Do
same.
we spray the rest of it?
No,
Well, the money's been building up, but if we're spraying it with this other funds,
I think what we need to do is we need to have a target of all those that we want to spray and bring it instead of trying to piecemeal it out
we do,
one at a time.
we do have it all in writing, what we need to do. But he has a half mile that he's kept a grass strip in, and he wants to keep his access strip. But he wants help with the board.
Yeah, if we can get,
Probably too late to get him on the spray list this year.
I don't think so.
I got a request.
It's gonna be a while before he gets here anyway.
we don't wanna mow right away. That's what I said when he come a year ago.
yeah, it,
We don't mow, we don't mow his roadsides and we don't mow his right away.
But we spray them. It's okay to spray them though, right? Keep them clear.
Well, I'm not gonna say. I keep mine clear, so.
Don's requesting that on Big Deer up there, and Gordon had to send footage to right-of-way management to have right-of-way management spray Gordon's, and then Gordon was going to pay for
My
it
cost.
out of his own pocket.
Let's have.
How about we let Gordon's get paid for by right-of-way management and let Don Wright get paid for out of it?
That'd be a way to do it. And what's gonna come out of this fund?
Use the fund to pay both of them.
I don't have a problem with that, but I think we need to chew on it for 2 weeks just to,
In
Make
2
sure
weeks,
we're not-
it might be too late to get it on, I don't know.
what do you think, guys?
Sounds good.
Which part?
Chewing on it for 2 weeks.
I'll tell Don we got it in consideration, we're gonna talk about 2 weeks, right?
Why don't you
Mine's
give them
already
notice?
Yes, yes.
You've already sprayed
Mine's
yours?
on on. I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
You've already sprayed yours? or-
No.
No?
Right-of-ways.
Okay.
Okay.
Just put them on notice, that's under consideration.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and call him.
Okay.
All right, now we're ready for other business now, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, under other business, we have Low Match Ditch, Sarah Miller discussion regarding tree removal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for giving us time this morning. I'm Sarah Miller. I'm a local pastor and I live on Joshua Drive in the Heritage University Village Homes. We have some of our other neighbors here. This is Greg and Kelly Baddock, who are my neighbors on Joshua Drive as well. We are here to bring our questions and concerns and complaints about what happened on April 17th at 11 a.m. concerning the Lomax ditch. There were trees back there that had been growing for 10 years that came down within minutes with no warning to us as residents, and they were 4 to 5 feet from our backyards. When they came down, it got rid of a whole bunch of beautiful wildlife habitat back there that included a bald eagle living in the back. And it took away our block that we had from our yards to Meyer, so that all of a sudden now we have the Meyer noise and we can see Meyer again. That morning we spoke with the farmer, Doug, and got some information from him, and then we proceeded, realizing we didn't have all the information, to watch your April 9th video of your meeting. And we knew after watching that as well that we still had more questions that we needed answers for. Some of our concerns are we need clarification about what happened, what the plan was, and how it was done. We also are concerned about our property values and what this has done to those. And lastly, we are here and we do agree with you that this ditch needs to be maintained because we also don't want our backyards flooding. So we are on that same page with you guys. So our first question that we have is, where is the actual location of the Lomax ditch? Because we looked at some of the old maps and it appears that there's some debate as to whether or not it was rerouted or vacated.
We've had city and county working on that question this morning.
Okay.
Jim, you want to start there? And
Well, I read the vacation hearing and it was after the work was to be done, it was gonna be determined later, and I don't think it ever was. There's an easement exists where the mound of dirt stops the Lomax. There's the immediate channel right behind that's to the west. And I take it it's either that one or the next one over. They're all in the drainage easement is, 150 feet altogether through there. And, the drainage easement stops at the slope at your fence. So, that's why all the work was done. If that's not and I realize you're missing your trees, it'd be nice if the trees were planted on the other side, because Raymond found something where they were supposed to, and some of them grew and some of them didn't. But you're gonna have to keep the brush out of that ditch, because what you have is quite a few holding ponds connected to some swamp. And if the swamp's not maintained, you're gonna have water in your streets and your back door. And I have a concern about the 38th Street pipe needs bigger, and the Valley Avenue pipe needs bigger. Because if them two ever plug up, I've seen beavers make homes inside of pipes underneath roads. They did it under State Road 18.
Absolutely. My name is Greg Patrick. So when we go back and we look at the April 9th video, it talks about removing the beavers because of the problems that we've had the last couple of years. I think we all agree that that was causing problems. But when we were out there talking with Doug, it was evident what you're saying is 150 foot goes up to the top. But then as we asked about the 75 feet going the other way, like it was described that could go into our backyards as well. So
It doesn't.
and there was confusion about what that area was.
It doesn't. The county doesn't have a right of easement in your yard at all.
Okay. And so,
We pulled the plat.
yeah, in our plat, when we look at those aren't
That's
marked
ours
either.
as well.
But also with listening to the video, it was evident that the access to the Lomax, it does look like all the maps, it's been relocated to the east side, that ditch. And then there is some overflow from the south pond that Doug's, I think, has tile going into one of those holding ponds. But the relocation of the Lomax on the east side, it was talked about, there was access to go clear that out and get remove the beaver dams, was solely supposed to take place on the east side, that there was not supposed to be any work done on the west side. That was talked about in the video. So when we're out there talking, we're specifically talking about the trees on the west side that the neighborhood is supposed to maintain, not the county. And so I just feel like there needs to be better clarification on who's responsible for what, and if that was supposed to have been maintained by the county, how come they had not? And we just seem like as we're looking at old maps, it's really hard to tell, like when Coles and Meyer and all the developments came in and with Arbor, like they're actually, I mean, you can see going back to 2002 on the Google Earth sites that, I mean, it was relocated. But then like where it's relocated has kind of been hit and miss depending on what maps you look at and what years. And now the latest ones that we received, it does show that the Lomax has been relocated to the east side, and there is access to it all the way around. There's pictures there where it hooks around, and then now there's a secondary Lomax that branches down where one of the retention ponds flows into. So all that looks like that is clear now, but not all the documentation really is aligning with that. And that's just my perception of what I think that is what it is now. It may not be, but I think we would just like to know for certain, like, what are we responsible as homeowners? We purchased those properties, we paid extra money for those lots because of the beautification of the habitat and the pond views. And so now we're out there looking, we have no trees now blocking us from all the semi-trucks that are lined up in Meyer now. And if Meyer was supposed to be responsible to maintain or build some type of buffer for us like they did along the car wash station, why have they not been made to do that? And if our trees on the west side were not supposed to be cut down and Doug did more than what he needed to do, can we talk about something that can be done with re-beautification in that area? You know, I just feel like the trees that were on the left-hand side had nothing to do with the water flow directly behind our houses.
No,
But again, we don't feel like there's been anybody out there kind of overseeing or talking about it. And as we've been listening, you've been talking about notifying all the landowners of this work that's going to be done, but yet we weren't given that same courtesy.
In my opinion, the drainage easement existed and we wasn't gonna be on your property. That was why. These other people were gonna actually be on their property.
But you have to understand that these trees were at least 10 foot tall, within 4 feet of my backyard where my 4 little children were playing. And I wasn't notified to be able to get them out and make sure they were safe.
And I think the west ditch and the other one, the west ditch is the one that comes down and drains the tile that drains the farm ground. So that's gotta be the Lomax. The other one can be the Lomax too, because it's draining the central area. The other one that goes out around the pond drains the parking lot and keeps it separated from the big pond and outlets close to 38th Street. The reason for that is to keep all the contaminants out of the other water, because everything comes off that parking lot. And there's a little peninsula, they did cut some willows off of that. That's silted in and needs dredged. If the drainage board doesn't do it, somebody's gonna have to do it someday, because if the peninsula is so small, the muskrats are working from both sides, they've compromised that little dam. So you've got water that's supposed to go there, bypass the big pond, but it's seeping in.
Like
If it's not maintained,
Like the secondary Lomax, there was no work done on that. It looks all stuff growing and kind of falling into that as well.
well, it needs done.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, we're trying to go back and find some of this, just so we know. And, I mean, the flooding that was down on the south end of the pond there, the neighborhood near the fields there, I mean, that was horrible, having all that water sitting down there. And so the fact that we've had all this rain, water is definitely moving, but is it because the trees were all cut down, or is it just because the beaver dams were moved? We don't know. And so we know that there's still beavers out there because we have seen them. So that's going to continue. So do the trees actually all need to be cut down there? Because we know trees do absorb water as well, plus they hold. Now that if that is the homeowner's responsibility of the association, now are we going to be required to pay someone now to maintain all this extra grass that's through there, which they're not going to run their mowers through there because the stumps that are there? So now it's like we've got to figure out how we're supposed to manage this as a neighborhood now. That we had no idea to even kind of talk about this until after the fact. So.
Well, I think that you're paying paying $20 a home site, which that's in a discussion to raise the rates. 50 is the average, generate more money, but the drainage board ultimately did not vacate that easement through there. And it's still their responsibility to keep it open, and you can't dig out an open ditch if there's trees there. That's why the trees were cut down, to get the
And
drainage.
those trees were not in the ditch, they were up on the bank. That's what we're just our confusion.
Because some of the trees were.
But were they in
left,
the
were
east?
Some of the ones that are
Yeah,
on the
they were
top.
all in the easement. We didn't cut nothing that wasn't in the easement.
But you left some of them that were in the easement then. So that's what we don't understand.
They
why.
were at the top of the slope, and the landowner
But
probably.
also there were some that were cut down, so it just seemed to be like it was kind of hit and miss on which ones were chosen. It's just unfortunate.
Did you want the other trees cut down?
No,
No,
absolutely.
we do not.
Well, the contractor was leaving them for you because it was out of the slope. I seen some of them.
But in this picture here, those were our trees, right? That's from our house. Now behind Sarah's house, she lives 2 houses down, there was a tree that actually sat behind all of these towards her fence. It was within, 5 feet of her fence, and that one was cut down.
Was it on the slope of the ditch?
It was above the slope of the ditch. That's why
I
we're
didn't-
saying like.
I
there
didn't
were-
see that one. I only seen the
Yeah,
ones on
and
the
it was
slope.
this big around, and it came down, and her children were playing right there. And that's where, I mean, and she has videotape of all of that. But our concern is, trying to figure out where the Lomax. So this is what I got from the town. So this is what the city has with all of our sewers, with all of our storm drains. And the Lomax was relocated to the east side, right here. Now, yes, there's water runoff that comes in here. That's not from the field. Because if you look at the map, that field actually goes to this manhole and goes to the city. You can find it by the arrows. Now, this is, I think, Mr. Cate's property, and it comes into this retention pond. This retention pond goes right next to it, because there's 2. And then there's a runoff into this one as well. And then I think what it does is then it goes this to it, because it all goes up to 38, from 44 to 38. And so it runs through this ditch, and this ditch here was the one that he had permission on the 9th to dredge, which it needed to be dredged in that sense, because it was, and that's where the beaver dam was, behind lot 99 and 98. And then they said to use the small arm and to move it and to make kind of a land mass there so that in 10 or 15 years, if you needed to come back, you would have access to the Lomax. But in this, it shows that this is the primary and this is now the secondary for the Lomax, okay? And there is a little drain that goes from the north into the secondary Lomax.
Right.
And that is draining absolutely fine. There's no issues there. And so that's where I think it's all would be considered the Lomax. We live here along this ditch. This ditch has never had any flooding. This ditch has never had, we didn't have any beaver dams down there. And the farmer did not dredge where we were. What he did was he came over and he asked our neighbor 4 or 5 houses down, knocked on her door and asked permission to enter into her backyard with his machines. So you can ask a neighbor to have permission to come back into their yard, but not notify the people that have children playing in their backyard, hey, we're gonna take down 10, 15-foot trees. Do you see? So that's where some of, we know, like, our trees, you can't magically grow our trees back. We understand that. It's just, how do we know for sure where the Lomax is, where it's going, what actually needs to be done? And that needs to be done. That needs to be assessed. And so in that, like, how do we know that, was there ever a drainage study done to know that this would actually alleviate it? Our ditch dries out every summer until and then we'll get a big rainstorm and then we'll get a slow trickle and then we'll get, but then it clears out. I mean, it clears out pretty fast, even with the beaver dams. And so, like, I don't see why it had to. And the argument told to us was you needed access to the Lomax. Well, you could have done exactly what you did, left our trees alone because there is a land bridge right here. Gone around, did what they did, the brushing, to get back here to where the beaver dam was, come around, and that's where it is. And that would have left all those trees just fine.
So our concern is just in 10, 15 years, where it gets maintained again if it needs to. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And so just it's just kind of, we're going through and trying to find like drainage maps. We're going back into the board meeting notes. And it's back on April 10th of 2007, June 12th, 2007, June 26th, 2007, July 10th, 2007, October 9th, where there are many more dates here. And it says many times the notes are just talking about the development plans for Arbor, Meyer, and Coles to build. There are documents with vacating the Lomax, discussion about vacating, rerouting the ditch. These are all listed as a document from Mr. Henderson that was given to the board on June 26th meeting and voted on the July 10th, 2007 meeting. Which that would be great information because that's all right about the time that all the development was happening. We go back and we're trying to find that, but from 2008, 2010, we couldn't find any more notes online about that, just to try to help us find out, because what we want to know is like, so as a homeowner association, do we need to be looking now at our rates and talking to all of our property owners about what we need to do to be maintaining this? Does there need to be more communication with our neighborhood property owners if the county is going to maintain that, and what does that look like in 10, 15 years from now? Is the Lomax actually relocated to the east side of those retention ponds? And if it is, isn't there already access to maintain that all the way around there as is right now? So those are just things that as homeowners, we would just like to have like, we bought into the community kind of with one thing, and we kind of felt like something happened and we weren't notified about this. And so no one is arguing that water management is important. Nobody wants to have water back there. We don't want water on the streets. We want to make sure everything's flowing from the fields and moving through like it's supposed to do to get down to the Sinaloa or wherever it goes from here. But we would just like to know, like when we're looking for stuff, to kind of know like, what are our rights? What do we need to know about? Is there anything that we're responsible for now? What does this look like for the future?
I have a question. I live on Middleton Court, which is right behind.
For the record, could we get your name and,
Lucy Hughes,
thank you.
and right behind Coles. And there was a tractor that was cleaning out the debris that they had left behind in the water on that berm, the one that possibly the muskrats were using. And I was right outside my window, I was watching. He cleared out a small space of debris that was floating in the water, and I thought, oh, good, and left behind 8 times as much as he's cleared out. It's still sitting there. The rain has not caused it to go down. It's floating there. If you're clearing the ditch, that's not leaving it very clear. That bottlenecks it up because it comes right where it starts to open up into the wide part of the pond. So it seemed like they didn't finish the job at all.
I think with all the anger that was directed at them, they pulled off. They wasn't wanting to make a big deal right now.
I never talked to them, not once.
Yeah.
I just was.
Well, somebody did the crew, you know.
Yeah, well, still, was an engineer ever consulted as to how this could be best affected?
If you want to spend your money on an engineer to study it, the board can.
Well, it just seems like you would do that.
And it's probably too late.
It's too late now, but it seemed like it was like, okay, boys, clear the ditch, and then they just could do whatever they wanted to do. That's exactly how.
Everything they did helped. I know
Well-
you don't realize that, but it helped the drainage.
Yeah, well, it's,
Aesthetically, it's not pretty.
No.
When you go through that process, but the brushing process is to eliminate any type of blockage on anything. I think we can answer the other question is that the right-of-way, our easement was never vacated. There's always been, by this board, saying that has to stay in county control because of the agricultural land to the south of it. It has to flow, and so we didn't give that over to the city. So
I understand what.
this will be the board that the homeowners association
Yeah.
has and will continue to work with on
Yeah,
that.
I just, are they gonna finish clearing out the debris, or is the debris just gonna stay there? I would think that that was what you was part of your goal in the first place.
I think
Yeah, it needs cleaned up more.
we could definitely ask, I don't know if Doug or Wendell want to say anything on that or not.
Well, it was the bucket that was starting the clearing, and then it just never finished.
Where did the debris come from?
A lot of the cutting.
It was all the, you have to understand where I am. I'm at the place where you got the little creek behind, you have the big pond turning into a narrow area going off toward the south. So that's where I am. And I don't know if there was more debris up toward the north end on Joshua. But I do know that there's still a big floating flotsam.
Let's say debris, where did it come from?
The tree's coming.
This side.
My goodness, it was never
I
there
know.
before the trucks came.
I know we had a discussion because we cleaned it out before.
No, it wasn't clean right afterwards. 'Cause I lived right there. I watched them take the tractor away, and it was not clean when they took the tractor away. It's not reason to wash.
The board could authorize a contractor to come out and keep picking up the sticks, and if there's more willows that needs cut down on that outer line.
If you look out there, the fences and walls kind of on a straight line down through there.
Yeah.
I think Arbor Homes or some outfit like that owns from that fence over to the creek, okay? Because when you look
Yes,
on
they
the
do. It's on the maps.
GPS, there's a different owner for a strip down through on Arbor Homes. And another problem you got there, you're gonna have to raise the rate out there on houses because they're not paying nothing. They're paying $20 a year.
I have a question on that. When was that assessed?
It's been on assessment for a long time.
Because I know there's been at least 70 or 80 houses that have been built, and they're still only at the $5 an acre rate.
We just changed that.
And so,
I'm on that rate right now, and he just told me it's going up, so.
yeah, and same
Those have
with,
all been corrected and added on to the $20, so the ditch tax next year it's gonna reflect that, and they're gonna start paying the $20.
And same with the businesses that you can see on this that flow into the Lomax.
Yeah.
Like they're only paying
I
$5.
understand, but you got, if you take the roofs, coming down the drains and so on and so forth, in the parking lots, you got 40 acres or better.
Yeah,
But on an inch of rain producing 1 million gallon of water, okay?
yeah,
And you gotta have a way to get rid of that.
correct.
And this is the reason they come in there and trying to clean that. And there's pipes that run from one side to the other. And I know that you guys is upset with it, but it's something that just has to be done. And needs to be, like I say, it needs to be a hearing, raise the houses to $50. And,
But I would rather, before we raise it, make sure that the retail is paying for all the concrete.
I'll go along with you.
You know, they, because that's a huge, we have grass. So ours absorbs it. We had the trees absorb the water. Where they're fully concrete out there. And it's like, if they're flowing their drains, which they are by the city map, and if it's draining back there.
Well, it's not going to the city.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I know at the April 9th meeting, watching that, you talked about contacting Howard County to find out what they charge for concrete commercial businesses. Like, I don't think our taxes as homeowners should go up to $50. That's $30 more for every house until we know what the concrete places in the commercial are paying
Not a
into that.
problem, because when you have the hearing, you're gonna raise all that, you're gonna clear up Texas Roadhouse and get that whole bunch that comes into that watershed.
I think hard surface runoff, I know Brad Rail, the engineer on Oak Hill, seemed it was $35 an acre on the farm ground. It seemed like it was 3 times that amount.
So if I can go back as to the beautification, kind of back around on that outside edge there behind Meyer. So one of the meetings that talked, there's documentation that showed that Meyer was to provide all of this buffer. So if they planted the trees and then they failed for whatever reason, like they do, is there any recourse or anything that we can do to have them replant along that extent? If that east side is never going to be touched and it's going to be our side for whatever reason, can we do something with the east side and put some kind of buffer there?
Yeah, I think your subdivision association needs to contact them and see if they're willing to either put them in or let the subdivision association plan them and work with them. That high bank, that's not in our easement. That main channel that goes around is to catch all this water to keep it out of the holding ponds and everything. And it goes around this way, and it needs dredge because it's silted in bad, but the muskrats are compromising because the channel's so narrow, they're working on both sides.
There's one that goes east, up there towards the
Car wash. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It bypasses and catches all this dirty water and takes it around, so it wouldn't going to the lake, or at least that was the intent. So I don't know if that one, we really can claim that one or not. If somebody don't claim it, it's gonna fail. It's all turned into swamp back there.
So you're recommending that the homeowners association at least make an attempt to talk with Meyer?
Yeah.
Somebody's got
some of the trees grew and some of them apparently died because they've got some nice big ones.
Somebody's got a
It just needs filled in.
They stopped right at kind of where the building was, and it's all open, kind of where in between PetSmart and Lowe's is. That's all open, and that's all of their semi and loading and docking station, that's everything.
I've been back there with
It's extremely loud.
the nuisance trapper. I've been back there with him. And I talked to the manager of the store once.
Right.
Let him know we'd have a trapper back there.
You knew the question was coming, Pat. Who would have those types of?
That's what I'm trying
The
to.
maps
As far as
on Meyer, where that water, does the water get to the city or where does it get to?
It goes back into Boots Creek all the way around.
Yeah, it does. It goes into Boots Creek and.
Comes down through town. Boots Creek's a natural creek, the city maintains it.
No, it's private property.
Right, private property.
Yeah, so the city doesn't maintain that.
Okay, but if a plug got in it, they'd probably maintain it.
So,
They're just lucky the beavers are going to the end where the nice ponds
If
are.
there's anything on Boots Creek, we have to get
Because they're coming up the river.
permission, and if they tell us to get off, because we've had people try to dam it up before.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have the authority to stop it.
Right.
So then you get into the whole.
It's private ownership.
So, and I believe who was talking about the ditch between Myers and the houses going east, maybe?
Yeah.
I think that was put in by Myers because when they were building, the people on 38th Street were complaining about their backyards.
Right.
Were already flooded.
It was.
one of the maps
So-
shows that
so they put
being
that-
relocated, it kind of shows that going around that north pond there behind mine.
Well, that's a different one.
Okay.
And honestly, I mean, the city has a map, but I don't know how accurate that is, because that was kind of put together based on, okay, what happened and what was the understanding at the time.
And I think it would be important to get those drawings that were from the Arbor, from Meyer Development, I mean, because they were paid for. The board paid for them back in 2007. I mean, because if you read the notes, it talks about that, and it was like Randall
Well, the
Engineering.
developer was paying the surveyor.
Yeah.
I don't know if the board ever got a final drawing.
And I don't know if Randy Miller might have some of those documents. Vanning Engineering was involved. And there was a lot of discussion and.
And then there was a drawing
And they-
from Mr. Henderson, and that's where the relocation, because you had the plan to vacate it. And at that meeting, he was like, can we vote to not vacate and let's relocate? And
Right.
you took his
With the
drawing.
drawing to be supplied later on that we never seen.
Okay, well, yeah,
That's
You
what
gotta
I'm
keep that
wondering.
creek open
Where is that
there,
drawing?
because you got a lot of water.
yes.
But it's not on our property to create.
You got water coming
Yeah.
off Myers roof, Myers parking lot.
And that's
All
over on the east
other
side.
storm.
I'm gonna rush this along because we still have 2 public hearings to go yet. So I would encourage, the next step is, I'm gonna throw him under the bus. I'm not sure if Bob's still here or not.
Yeah, he's in the back
We work
there.
with Bob Tippy to develop a dialogue with Meyer and see if they have any inclination to do that. And then we can actually follow up after what you guys find out with
Is
Meyer.
Meyer in charge of all the buildings out there? Sounds like
No, I think
they
it's separate.
planted trees to the end of Meyer, and then from then on, there's nothing.
It was the Heritage Arbor Homes that took the rest of that property.
It's owned by the University Marketplace now.
Okay.
I don't even know who they are. I assume in Indianapolis somewhere.
So
So it sounds like they need to talk to them,
if
not
we can
Meyer,
get
right?
your board to talk to them,
Yeah.
start that dialogue, and then we can work on what we can do about grass, the low types of things that won't inhibit water flow. I think that's our next step, and then we can have another dialogue here.
Do you want to authorize to go in and clean it up more?
I think we should.
Maybe somebody needs to go out there and look at it.
I have. But she's right.
Does it need more cleaning?
Oh, yeah.
She's right. There's sticks everywhere.
If you want, you can come to my backyard and look at it.
I walked the whole thing after the contractor was done. A lot more dredging and a lot more brushing needs done, in my opinion.
So where's the money come from?
Well, they got a fund. How much is in there, Mary Lomax?
52,000, I believe, last time.
Okay, yeah.
50,280.
Can I request that any future work that the homeowners be notified of that work? If it's maintaining, like what we're hearing, I know you're saying like it's not our direct property that you're in.
I think the protocol would probably be to notify the homeowners association,
And that's fine.
then that they can share that with the affected parcels.
Yeah, 50,000.
And it's shut off.
And it's shut off, so it's reached its potential.
Okay.
It'll
But
start
we-
going again next year though. 'Cause
You know, we authorized a little money to be spent on it, to get the
Okay.
beaver dams out this last time.
I thought the homeowner's gonna pay for that.
Who told you that?
Well, I guess from what discussion we had,
I never heard no homeowners was gonna pay for anything.
We were gonna, there
We're
was,
talking about this gentleman.
in the private ponds, they had to take care of that.
Dams or something that I think.
In the actual Lomax, we were doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of our homeowners association, is we take care of our ponds.
So you're after the beavers is out of the channel. We don't have to worry about them.
Right.
Okay.
They're all the same.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They're all from
We
one
still
big
have
family.
two public hearings.
All the same family, but they're building them out in that bigger
Yeah.
pond.
I mean, it's,
And we never caught any out there, so we didn't.
Okay.
A couple things real quick on that Lomax.
Okay.
Got time?
Yeah, just for the record, give us your
Doug
name.
King, C, 1427 South Roseburg Pike. Here's just a couple pictures of the outlets and that you can see that have been dropped. Once the trees were all gone, the dams were out, we were able to lower the, Mary, do you want one? We were able to lower the water table 20 inches, so that lets the field tile empty and drop out of there. That lets the surface water be able to run off quicker. And so then we dug the beaver dam out, and as of yesterday, the beaver dam has not been put back in. Like they said, there is more trees that need to come down, from 38th Street on around just to keep the water moving. You can see, I think, in your second picture where we need to sow some, or maybe your third picture, where we do need to sow some fescue and grass seed just where we tracked it up and basically mudded it up. But as a whole, the water's moving now. Yesterday morning, it was really quite peaceful walking out there because you had the wildlife back and the water was flowing.
That's why I think the main line that drains everything is the west channel. That middle one is supposed to be dry most of the time. That's the one all the pine trees died in.
They're not dead.
Yeah, they did, they were, yeah, when we were out there talking, they looked at it and they have come back.
They sprouted.
They did, and I couldn't believe it yesterday when I
They
said.
do it every year.
And,
It's like roost trees.
And I think it was Bob that said that where the trees are, that was originally dry.
It's supposed to be dry act as an extra reservoir on heavy rain. But it's set wet all the time.
So do you need to spray that?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get to here. There is more dredging that needs to be done. When Kelly and Sarah and Greg and I talked out there, they would like to be notified when it's sprayed and whether, when Bob and I talked on whether you just email it or not email, but mail Bob or the homeowner association president that we're gonna spray a couple days each month, just so we have options. And then he can pass on at their annual meeting, or whether you send them.
And that wind's gotta be coming out of the southwest, they're gonna complain over it to, don't get it too far, you're gonna kill those trees on the top of the hill.
And then, we just gotta be careful doing it, because it's, out of respect for the homeowners and out of respect for the people up there, so yes, that's one thing that we talked about is how to notify them, or just notify the homeowners association.
I will say that we'll need a little bit of time because we usually just use hard mail, snail mail, because we don't have everyone's email. So it wouldn't be an instant thing, but yes, I would be glad to facilitate that.
And this is the landowners along the channel, or is it everybody in the whole subdivision?
I'd probably talk to my board, but I would assume that would be everyone along that
channel.
east side, yeah. And maybe around the corner there a little bit before 38th Street on there.
But yes, there is, and when we talked with Kelly and Sarah that, that east bank, the bigger trees need to stay just for their noise break, but there is quite a few little trees along the bottom of the ditch that do need to come out eventually, and just so water can flow through there. So as a whole, it's a work in progress, and appreciate your help and your obligation to go back and make water flow.
This water picture that you're showing, I saw one earlier prior to, and we actually had some of those culverts, those pipes that were halfway up or more.
Yes.
So that's amazing, that retention, just with what we've done.
Yes.
As painful as it is, that we're seeing a dramatic drop in the water.
So, appreciate it, thank you.
All right, we need to go to our public hearings, and our first one is for Dry Fork, Peterson, Casey, South Prong of the White Branch. And basically, as we go through a public hearing, our process is we hear from the surveyor telling us the history of why we're here. We'll open up the public hearing for public comment, pro and con, and then once we have folks that have shared their information, we will close public comment and put it into the hands of the board. So we are going to open up the public hearing for the Dry Fork, Peterson, Casey, South Prong, and White Branch. So, Jim, will you give us the history, please?
There currently is no maintenance on this. It was reconstructed about 84, and at the time, no one wanted to put maintenance on it. But we got a plan to maintain it and put it at $7 an acre with a $50 home site and a $25 minimum for a 4-year collection. And we had 4,059 acres, and we had 3 acres object. That was a Mrs. William Thatcher. And has the board read the objection letter?
Yes.
What'd you say? Per acre? Per acre?
7.
7. This is to take care of all the open ditches and the branches, which will be the South Prong, the Right Branch, and the part on the end they call the Peterson Casey.
Other questions of the board to surveyor?
I'm getting to the regular here. Okay, that's going to be, it's going to generate $30,650 a year. Which is, as the money gets in there, they can start brushing the downstream end. Some of it is kept clean, and they've sprayed it towards the end.
Where's it at?
It outlets at 37. Raymond, you got maps to pass out, don't you? It ends up at 500 west. And it enters just north of the airport where it crosses 37. Okay. Then it goes to a natural creek from there on.
Oh, that would be.
I walked the whole thing in 84, so I know where it's at. I run elevations on.
The airport's that plus thing. The airport's that plus thing at an angle. Yeah.
And the airport I talked to Kyle this morning, and I'll be getting with him later this week. He's going to check into if the airport has to pay, but they just have a few acres that's south on their property that drains across 37, goes around like this, and then hits the open ditch, and then comes back across 37. So they do have just a few acres long.
Other questions for the surveyor?
That's one of the ditch that comes into Lindale Lake, right?
Yes.
It goes to Big Deer, right?
Yes.
And eventually, at another time, in another public hearing, we talked about incorporating that lower area into an assessment as well.
Yeah, I'd take a public hearing and make it a legal drain.
But we're just dealing with the upper. All right, we ready to hear from the public? All right, we will open up our public comment section for the Dry Fork, Peterson, Casey, South Prong, and White Branch as advertised. Anyone want to speak for or against? We invite you to come, present your name, address for the record, and if you have acreage, please just let us know.
Wayne Smart, 1997 West, 500 South, Marion. Jim, you said it's 4 years. I didn't see that in the paperwork, which is one of my questions, and that's fine. We are, Smocks Davidson Farm Inc. has 820 acres going to this. And we are in agreement, maximum of $5 between us, the farm. That's what we are hoping for.
5 instead of 7?
Yes.
Okay.
And, you know, that, if that gets approved, we'll be on board with it.
And then we're only gonna spend it how you direct us. I know you went downstream and done a lot of work on your own in the past.
But we'll keep doing that.
But as the money builds up, we're gonna wait for you and the other landowners along the ditch to figure out where to spend your money. So it's gonna be longer than a 4-year collection, probably, because as long as you keep spending money.
Sure, but if we, yeah.
But once you get your mission accomplished, it can shut off. My Taylor Creek shut off this year finally.
Yeah, we're good with that.
They'll be back on next year, but shut off for 1 year.
Goes underneath the highway there with an angle.
Yes.
Steve Pyle, 2421 West, 500 South. Let me get a little clarification here. We're talking strictly the Dry Fork and the Patterson right now, or are we going to South Palm as well?
That's coming, the tile's coming up next.
Okay.
But the open ditch part is gonna be part of the $5 an acre or $7 an acre.
I'm in agreement with Wayne. I've got acreage into this.
But you know how that little open ditch comes across the highway, that can be maintained by the big fund. And that open channel, because that's a branch, just like the right branch needs maintained.
Right, okay.
But just.
We have acreage that's dumping into the Dry Fork and Patterson.
You're gonna be double.
$5 is, $5 is perfect, 7 is a little excessive. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is William Thatcher. I live 3274 West, 600 South. There, I got this assessment there. I got 2 of them there. So part of it is for this one and part of it's for the Dry Fork there that we're going to talk about next. There. I'm on a fixed income. Now I got 2 here where I've only been paying $5 for ditch maintenance. There, and now they're wanting $25 on this one there, and $150 on the next one there. So I'm going from $5 or what I've been paying to $175 there. And I have 3 acres there, but nothing of mine drains onto this. My septic tank there doesn't drain to it. It's on the septic tank in leach field there. So that's all put in new, so nothing drains on it there. So I don't have any water. My water there, like everybody else's there, it floods it when it rains there and soaks down into the ground. I don't have any access into any of the drains there. Nothing in my property is hooked to anything there. So I don't feel there that this assessment is fair to me there.
At the $5, it would be better than the 7 though.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to pay.
Because you are in the watershed, and then we're going to address that next one on home site rates.
Yeah, I'm willing to pay my share of this. It just seems to be excessive to me from where it was to what you guys are wanting now.
Well, it's because the other one is because the tile's so old. But we're going to address that in a minute, and you need to.
Yep, so I'll be
Give
back
us your
up with that.
opinion. Yeah, give us your opinion on that here in a minute.
Yeah, so I appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Wendell Cates, 2650 West 50th Street. I'm fine with that $5. Because at 4 years, we're up around 87,000, and I think that's plenty high enough for a cutoff. For that, an open ditch is going to get pretty hard to spend 87,000. I mean, unless you're doing major cleanup. So, thank you.
Any other Put on my auctioneer hat going once.
Are those the three major players on that ditch?
Columbia.
Anyone else?
I saw $5 an acre, how much to bring in? How many acres?
I've got it there.
What'd you say?
They're just one of the-
$4,059.
Pardon?
Little over 21,000.
Okay.
And I'd be my recommendation that we go with the $5 that have been recommended.
Last chance. Anyone want to speak publicly on this? Hearing none, we will close the public comment of the public hearing and turn it to the hands of the board for discussion and or any other questions.
Sounds like they want $5, right?
Sounding that way.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Cates is already making a motion to change the acreage from $7 to $5 an acre. Are you still saying a $50 home site, 25 minimum with a 4-year collection?
Yeah, on that one.
Second. We do have support. We can discuss it, gentlemen.
Sounds like that's what the majority of the acreage wants, so.
And if it's able to maintain it and spray, keep spraying, that's all we want. But I don't know, I'm questioning where it comes across 37 to the east side, from there to the Glendale Lake down there. Can they take care of that for $21,000 a year?
It has fall. Water gets away once it gets through 37. It's been dredged there one time, I know.
We're not legal after we pass 37.
That's what it was at one.
And so, if you could get us legal clear to 9, we'd appreciate it, so we can take out a beaver dam.
How do we get it?
You have to have a public hearing with those landowners, and then you're taking their trees down and messing with their beavers.
I think
that'll move the chairman back in there so he can get it done.
I don't know about.
I don't think you can get him to move right now.
Since the dam busted, they classify that as wetlands. They aren't. You aren't going to be able to move it now.
Yeah.
You know, one time I met 2 lady engineers from the DNR and the Army Corps when Mr. Bragg tried to work out there a little bit. And that'll be the problem. The dam needs to come out, in my opinion. The creek needs put back through there. If they want a couple ponds, I talked to Mark a long time ago about this, dig a couple below ground ponds, have the creek come into a pond, then it could go out of that pond in another, and then have it just a stream, and then you can make a little park setting, you know, and mow it for the subdivision.
That's another discussion for another time.
Good, but you know, it's not going to work.
But
It's in a wetland.
right now, you've got a swamp,
Yeah.
but I don't know about how they're gonna let us.
And their association is probably not going to pay the money to relocate some wetlands. So
They need to take the dam out. That's all they need to do. Take the dam out, dry up.
Who owns the dam?
I think maybe part of the airport does.
Airport owns part of it and the association owns part of it.
The airport, I went to the board of the airport, and the airport will give us approval to do anything we want on their side.
That's good. We've got a motion with support. Any more discussion on the motion? Which again was a change from $7 to $5 an acre, $50 a home site, 25 minimum with a 4-year collection.
Yep.
Ready to vote? All those in favor would say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, no. Those abstaining? It is unanimous. All right. We will sign that paperwork, and we will close the public hearing for the Dry Fork, Peterson, Casey, South Prong, and White Branch, and we will now open public hearing for South Prong of the Dry Fork as advertised. Jim, if you could walk us through that information.
The current maintenance assessment is $1.25 an acre with a minimum, a $5 minimum for a 4-year collection. Due to the cost of maintaining the board has been petitioned to raise it to $25 an acre with a $100 home site and a $50 minimum for a 4-year collection. We did have 165 acres object to the 885 acres involved, and that was Mr. Pyle, and he recommended a $7. He would be in agreement to a $7. And then their other objection was Mr. Thatcher, and he would bear a $100 home site, which our average are 50. So, you know, we could readdress that.
Do we know how many houses we currently have in this watershed?
I mean, 12 home sites.
How many home sites?
12, and that's 885 acres. It's a narrow watershed with a real old tile in there. The old rate just generates $1,197. And the last time that, you know, it broke down on Brian Cates, he did fix it himself and he didn't send the bill in. I guess the tractor fell in.
What's the proposed rate?
Yeah, the proposed rate that we got petitioned for was $25 an acre. We bring in $22,135, and I think the plan was to, as that money comes in, start closer down by the head wall. Some of it's been replaced, and start replacing that tile, you know. That would, and then you got the current rate that bring in $23,795 a year, which doesn't go far when you're putting in big tile.
What tile is it? What size is over in 25, 24 inches there?
That's what starts out. I'm not for sure what it downsizes to. What size is it at the county road down by Alice Quinn's house?
Can I give you a little history?
Sure.
I've been there my entire life. Steve Pyle, by the way. And this started out as a 20-inch tile, clay tile years ago. And I don't know if it's been in there 80 years or 100 years, but it's been there longer than me.
Yeah, it was 1897 on the index card, I think.
Yeah, so it's been in there for a few days. And we all know as pressure builds up in the spring of the year, the old clay tiles that are quartered, they heave up with big pressure on them, and then they collapse after the storm's through. Over the years, south of 22, Old Man Spencer owned the ground that now is owned by Walt Reniger and Reggie Spencer. They have like 5 acres there at that corner. Years ago, he got tired of, he was older like I am now, got tired of going in there and digging out the hole, putting a new tile in, and he asked for permission to just turn around, and as they collapsed, pull them out. That's the only reason there's an open ditch there just south of 22. That used to be tile line right to the underpass. Well, that saved him doing a repair, but it still didn't relieve the issue with the pressure going through there. There's so much rainfall that comes down through there going to the dry farm. On further over to 37 and over to 9. As that backs up, we end up with surface water coming all the way from Kent. And it gets worse as it goes on across 300 and then through the Steve Ritchie and myself and into the 37 crossing. Over the years, I've dug many of those tile out, put new 20-inch back in there. Those maintained, but as time went on, we kept getting failures on the Craner farm, what I call the Craner farm, then over to Steve Ritchie, then over to Steve's place. And we started putting in 24s because we couldn't get 20s anymore. So we put in a joint of 24s. That started relieving things, and we also put a breather over on 300 to allow it to come up out of the tile line, put it on the surface, wait for the creek to get opened up on Dry Fork, and it will relieve itself eventually. I think this is an overkill on what we're asking for maintenance. I understand, what was it, $1.25 or something like that?
Right.
This is a buried tile opposed to an open ditch. I'm not real happy with it going up, but 25 is ridiculous. I think 7 is a fair amount. I'd like to see it at 5. Because all we need to do is continue bringing the 24 back as we have major failures. Put a 100-foot joint of that in, repair it. While we have the funds, just keep going west with that. I think that will eliminate Ronnie Cates falling into a tile that breaks down. And trust me, there's a lot of nights that we went out to shell corn in the dark and you're looking for that ditch line, because if that's quartered up and heaved back down, the ground still, that clay will hold itself, and I put a combine down in them before. It's not fun. But I think an assessment of $7 is sufficient for the long term and to maintain and then continue repairs going further west. Once we've got that solid pipe in, there's been no failures on that. It's the clay. I haven't ever replaced one of the concretes that we put in there, but the clays continue to fail. And it won't move water. If we had a 48-incher in there, it wouldn't move the water any faster because it's still waiting on the creek to get opened up through Glendale Lake, all the way west. It's full. When things get full, the river's full, Glendale's full, you're just going all the way back. It doesn't matter what that 20-inch going to 24 with solid pipe relieves our problems. Does anybody have any questions from my history? Like I said, I've stood in there many a time, and that's a deep tile line. When I'm in it, there's ground level at my nose. It's in the ground. So it needs to have a maintenance.
That's what saved it all these years.
It needs to have a maintenance fee on it. Like I said, we put a breather over at 300 to allow it to relieve itself instead of making the existing clay tiles heave, and they're quartered. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
How many of the 885 acres do you have?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, 14 acres and a 59, or 55, 56 acres, and Steve's got 22 going into it.
You had 165 acres of the 885.
Yeah.
18%, almost 19%.
Okay.
Watershed.
What do you want, $7?
I'd like to have the 5, but I know it's buried, so I'll go with the 7. I can live with the 7.
I'd put $6,197 in the fund a year.
What's what?
$6,197 in the fund a year.
It doesn't cut it, because at 24, it doesn't go very far.
5 or 7. That's a 7?
Yeah.
7.
How deep, at 300, won't you be the breather, how deep is that there?
At the bridge?
Yeah, the little bridge at 300.
Yeah.
How deep is the tile there?
It's probably 4 feet there.
Because I heard you say, you showed.
I'm talking, most of my breakage that I've repaired has been on the Craner farm, the first one back from the open ditch. Steve Ritchie's had them. He's about the same elevation, and Steve's 22 that's there. It's about 4 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
And Bragg Excavating a man went all the way through the pipe there and got debris out at one time, the surface pipe there. I think it's only about a 24, so it would have been tight.
Right.
Appreciate the history and the opinion. We need to open it up for the rest of folks.
Because this all backs up on Alice Quinn's property.
Yeah.
She's not here today. Speak.
And Brian Cates farms is that his farm or is that?
Brian's south of 600. Ronnie's on the north side of 600. And
runs right here.
Brian turned around and did pattern tiling on the south side of 600, didn't take that water south to the other ditch, he brought it north. So he's added pressure onto this line.
And see, that may not reflect on our watershed is surface wise. So if he's did some tiling and took it through a little hill, he's adding to it, and it's not in the original watershed probably.
No.
But in a heavy rain, that water's still going to that other ditch, Bell Ditch, I think. Heavy rain, yeah, it's heavy rain, it's probably still draining that way. We've had that problem before.
Saturated earth, though, will be collected and taken through here.
Right,
Yeah.
so we probably need to add some kind of acreage on and find out what he's tiled and kind of add that on.
Just saying.
Maybe percentage of what he did or something, you know?
Well, and at 300, they had dug out on the west side, trenched it through John Shen's farm to the north and Urban Ground to the south, and put it so that their surface water would run over, stay out of the field and run over and underneath that abutment bridge that's there at 300. Okay.
Yeah, it was 600, it was 600, I was thinking, that's the pipe that the guy crawled through, not 300, it was 600.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We are open to the public hearing side of things. Anybody else want to speak for or against the advertised amendment?
I'm in agreement with Steve there, at $7, but I think my home should be at the $50 minimum.
And I would agree and recommend we bump all the homes in this one down to 50. That's our average everywhere.
Mr. Thatcher, William Thatcher.
Yeah, what do you think? Thank you for your time.
I think we're putting a Band-Aid on.
That's all we can do.
But if that's what they want, a Band-Aid?
Yep.
That's what we'll approve.
Anyone else like to speak to the issue? Y'all been very patient today. Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and...
Does anyone want it? Well, we're not in discussion, right?
Yeah, we're not in discussion yet. I'm going to say, anybody else that would like to speak for or against, we invite you to do so. Going once. Going twice. I think we're done. We're going to close the public portion, public comment portion of the hearing, and we're going to turn it over to the board so that we can discuss the south prong of Dry Fork, decide what to do.
$7.50. $7 on.
You making that a motion, Mr. Cates, or you? Mr. Cates, I believe, is making a motion for $7 an acre, $50 home site. We still going to do a $50 minimum with a 4-year collection. That seems to be his motion.
Second.
Mr. Cox is second it. We can now discuss, folks. What do you want to?
I say it's a Band-Aid, but if that's what they want, we'll give them a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid they didn't have.
It's a bigger Band-Aid than $1.25.
Yeah, well, it's better than $1.25, but it's a Band-Aid. Because if I'm clear off in Quinns and where they're at, it's gonna take a long time to get up there to get me solved. But, you know, I'm just saying, but their money.
It's a place to start.
It's a place to start.
Any other discussion, questions? Ready to vote? All right. We are going to say all in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Abstaining. It is carried unanimously. So we have approved a $7 an acre, $50 home site, $50 minimum with a 4-year collection. for the South Prong and Dry Fork. We have completed our public hearings today. One other update that I wanted to get us discussing over the next couple of weeks. After a on-site visit with a local farmer, had some demonstrations, visualizations of what we need to be concerned about as a drainage board. Talked with a representative of Farm Bureau, and while we cannot do anything about a 75-foot top of bank easement issue, we can't extend that. It's come to our attention that we can discuss and seek a setback from our maintained ditches. And so our dialogue would be a recommendation that would go to the commissioners at some point while they're still in the moratorium phase, that we would probably recommend a 150-foot setback from center of the tile and or top of bank. And we can discuss that, and there's reasons that we have to give that would send that up, but I think that we can.
That'd be east direction, so it'd be a 300-foot strip.
That would be correct. Yeah. That we have the right to request in the ordinance for a setback, not a change in the easement access. And again, we can discuss that over the next few meetings, but that would be my recommendation, is that we discuss that and send that up.
I make a motion, we send that to the commissioners.
You have that right. We probably need to formalize a statement, but that I think it's a wise.
Put on the agenda for the next meeting.
He's made a motion. If anybody wants to second it, technically they can. We can second that. Is that to bring a full statement for the next meeting, Kenny, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what the statement is.
Okay.
It's basically set, if solar unit involves solar, right?
Just involving, yes, any type of solar, that we will ask for an ordinance amendment that gives us a 150-foot setback on each side. And the reason being, future encroachments and things like that would not have enough to work on just the 75-foot easement. So we'll get the wording together, make sure that we like that, and we can send it on.
So this may be a stupid question, can it apply to any development?
Yeah, why just solar?
Well, again, because we're dealing with the solar issue and that right now, we can develop that and send it on for any other ordinances that the commissioners would be sitting, and or that the APC would be wrestling with in their future.
Because I can see in certain circumstances that would be a good.
And it was great to visualize that out on the agricultural land, as well as the discussion we got from the Farm Bureau that helped. So we'll get that. We need to vote on that to bring it back. So all in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll bring that back in a couple of weeks and get that ready for a recommendation to the commissioners.
Appreciate it.
All right. Any other business, Jim?
No.
I'm not going to let Mary ever tell us that this is not a Gene Johnson meeting again. It's been a long one.
Johnson, make a motion.
Motion to move.
I'll second that.
Motion with support. All those in favor, go home, say aye. That was Pat. We do need your signatures on this, gentlemen.
Second that.
Pat.
I thought you guys take
Kenny motion.
Pat second.
To adjourn?
These guys get here. And it was my husband and, Ray.
know, whatever.
Those pictures were just unbelievable how much.
We get a lake. I mean, I don't know if anyone goes past our house, but we have a heavy rain. I mean, we're like on a moat with a lake around our property, so I mean, it's waiting for, it's waiting. Oh, well, we had this year, this spring, it started out with beanstalk. We had, I mean, when it came, we seeded the whole. So anyway, but still, you know, the lawyer and we always talk. But you guys don't know what you're creating. Yeah, energy, I like clean energy.
Oh, right here.
It's like